more reaction too when it comes to the markets, a particular focus on the Australian markets when they open up later on today. But as for the US markets, our business editor Ross Greenwood joins us from New York City this morning. So what are the numbers telling you so far, Ross?
Well, I'll tell you what, the stock market has greeted Donald Trump's presidency with a roar. So what's taken place is that really there has been a boom on the stock market here in the financial district of New York this morning. You can see that the broader market, the S&P 500, it's had one of its best days in 2 years. So the S&P at the moment, it's been, well, it says here down by 0.82%. In actual fact, it's up by some 2.4%. The other thing that's moved is the Dow Jones Index. So the Dow Jones Index getting close to record levels, up by some 3.4% as we speak. And so that really has had a very, very strong day. Now, amongst those stocks that have moved today, it's been banking shares and also technology shares that have been very strong off the back of suggestions that Donald Trump will cut company taxes and therefore, as a result, start to boost the United States economy. This has also boomed. The Bitcoin price has gone through $75,000 for the first time in history. It's up, at one stage, up 10% today. You can see here up around 9% today. But this is part of it. The story also goes to oil prices, which have fallen today. The reason oil prices have fallen is because Donald Trump is pro-producing more energy in America. If there's more gas, more oil, then that puts pressure on those energy prices here and around the world as well. But the big winners, I've got to tell you, Pete, today of this election, there's no doubt, Donald Trump himself. So his Trump media and technology business, which owns his social media site, Truth Social, it's risen. Initially, it was up by around about 10%. It's come off now. So Donald Trump's own personal wealth is up around $100 million as we speak. The share's up by some 3%. But the biggest winner of all, the man who was one of the biggest donors to Donald Trump's campaign, is Elon Musk, the owner of Tesla. So Tesla shares have jumped by some 15% on the stock market today in New York. And so Elon Musk's own personal wealth, because he owns most of that company, is up by $15.4 billion. So given the fact he donated around $120 million to the Trump campaign, as likely to be a key advisor, economic advisor to Donald Trump, the actual price or the value of his shares personally to him up by $15.4 billion today. You've got to say, he's the biggest winner so far.
Oh, that's just extraordinary. Now, Ross, just another question here on the election itself, and in the end, what does that result say about some suggestions that his policies were even that radical?
Well, it's true. And if you think about some of the things that Donald Trump offered, and the reason why people think that the US economy will boom, that's what he promised in the election campaign. Some of the things he talked about was the fact that, people with overtime would not be taxed on that. People who receive tips, that they would not be taxed on that overtime. That he would do a range of different things in the US economy. Retirees on their income would not be taxed. So these were pretty important things in regards to that policy. And it's part of the reason why the ordinary people actually voted for him, childcare credits. But the other thing also is that Donald Trump has promised that he would cut company taxes. He already was responsible for bringing those taxes down and says company taxes in the future will come down to 20%. So there's a range of different measures that he's promised that really do stimulate the US economy. But then there's something else, the suggestion that he will put 60% tariffs on Chinese goods, put 10% tariffs on any goods coming into America, including from Australia. And the final one, on the last days of the campaign, a 25% tariff or tax on goods coming across the border from Mexico. So these things are big economic changes and certainly in some ways radical changes, because the United States has not raised a lot of its money from tariffs since the early 1900s.
Okay, but on that point, and we'll close after this, Ross, if there is an increase in tariffs or taxes on imports, then don't they just jack up their prices, which in the end hurts the local consumer?
That is precisely right, and that is the reason why something else has happened on the markets today, and that is that interest rates on money markets have risen. So we're talking about all the stock prices going up. Well, interest rates have risen, and the expectation is, because if you suddenly raise these tariffs, you raise the price of goods in America, you increase inflation. So you don't get the big interest rate cuts that many Americans right now are riding on. And by the way, the US Federal Reserve makes its latest decision on interest rates tomorrow. About this time tomorrow, we'll hear that decision, and so we'll have it here on Sky News.
Good on you, Ross Greenwood. Ross Greenwood live in New York City this morning.